This week's episode is packed with wild wrecks, instant justice, dangerous drivers, and our first fan sighting of the most anticipated new vehicle in years. Hold on tight. Marco didn't stand a chance against a Honda Pilot. When Marco proceeded legally through a yellow light, the driver of a Honda Pilot turned across his lane, failing to yield to oncoming traffic with the right-of-way. Marco told us the other driver claimed to have a green light, but the dashcam footage reveals that isn't possible. Either their turn arrow was still yellow, or it had turned red, just like the light facing Marco's direction. Regardless, it couldn't have been green while Marco's light was still yellow. He's now fighting to have his repair and medical bills paid for by the other driver's insurance provider. This submitter experienced almost the same thing. His light was fully green when a Chevy driver turned in front of his Infiniti Q50. Witnesses called 911 and the police responded. The Chevy driver's insurance covered all repairs and medical bills. This submitter had just exited a highway and was getting ready to turn off of the one-way off-ramp onto a main road. That's when the driver of a red Honda Civic started turning toward her lane.
Other way!
Our submitter honked at the Civic driver and they proceeded to turn back onto the road they were on, only now they were trapped by a traffic island driving down oncoming lanes. After shouting at them, our submitter continued. She didn't tell us if they ever corrected their mistake. Bennett was headed down a neighborhood street that's meant to be shared by traffic going both directions. Note the arrows on the road surface. As he approached an oncoming car, he mistakenly believed the other driver would pull further to the side, and he clipped the back of the Chevy SUV with the front of his Nissan Altima. The impact ripped the front wheel off his Nissan and put it in the shop for a month. When police responded, they cited Bennett for failure to maintain his lane and gave him a ticket for about $150. Fixing Bennett's Altima cost $15,000. He didn't tell us if his insurance provider covered the bill or if he had to pay for it himself. Adam was driving down I-25 when a blue Hyundai Kona ran over a piece of road debris and sent it flying, nailing a skill shot into a GMC Acadia's side view mirror. It looks like the object, probably a rock, ricocheted off the mirror and into the underside of an overpass. Adam followed the GMC driver to the shoulder to make sure they were okay, and they were thankful for his footage. The Acadia was a rental car, so the dashcam footage was likely helpful in avoiding extra damage charges when the SUV was returned. Regardless, that was a pretty impressive rebound shot. Aman was driving with his wife when he noticed his Subaru Forester's automatic emergency braking activate. Aman told us the braking saved the car from hitting the pedestrian that he never saw coming. The guy shouted "sorry" before continuing across the street, leaving Aman and his wife to catch their breath. This submitter's son was headed to the gym for a workout when the driver of a Ford Focus proceeded through a stop sign, failing to yield to cross traffic. Sadly, he was unable to avoid a collision with the Ford Focus, damaging the quarter panel and rear bumper cover. A responding police officer facilitated the exchange of insurance information. The officer also informed the Ford driver that it was her responsibility to yield to cross traffic, but he didn't give her a citation. In spite of this, she made an insurance claim against our submitter's son, claiming he was at fault. When he made a counterclaim with her insurance provider, it turned out she wasn't their customer at all. Our submitter told us she was actually uninsured and had lied to the police. Thankfully, the damage to our submitter's son's truck was limited to paint scrapes, and some touch-up paint was enough to fix it. Obviously, the Ford took the brunt of the impact, showing why having insurance is a good idea. Devin watched a Subaru driver speed through town at over 50 miles per hour in a 35 mile per hour zone right past a state trooper. It should go without saying that this sort of driving should really be taken to the track. While the Subaru driver gets his prescribed dose of instant justice, we'll let you know that we actually have an opportunity to take you to the track in Vegas. Our sponsor Morgan & Morgan is giving away 2 tickets to see Kyle Busch race in Las Vegas, plus a $2,000 check to use for travel expenses or anything else you'd like. I bet this guy would love to have that money for his ticket. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm with more than 900 attorneys and 100 offices in all 50 states. And they're a proud partner of driver Kyle Busch. To enter for a chance to win, text Wham to For the People. That's 484-373-6753, or click one of the links in the video description. Thanks to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring this video. While Aleem's mother was driving home from work, the driver of a black car suddenly turned all the way across the road in front of her Toyota Camry. Both drivers pulled into a dealership parking lot and called the police. It took the cops 3 hours to respond. Thankfully, there were no serious injuries. Sadly, the Camry was totaled by the insurance company, but they chose to take a $7,000 settlement instead. They then paid about $6,000 to fix the damage, leaving them with an extra grand when all was said and done. This submitter was traveling on a notoriously dangerous road in Israel when he watched not one, but 2 impatient drivers dangerously overtake slower traffic. When the second car passed the traffic, it forced an oncoming SUV off the road to avoid what would have surely been a fatal head-on collision. Thankfully, no collision occurred. Michael was heading home at 1 a.m. after making a DoorDash delivery. When he slowed down for traffic ahead of him on the highway, he lost control and slid into the concrete median barrier. After hitting the median barrier, Michael's Nissan Altima was T-boned by a Toyota 4Runner, which then veered off into the forest before hitting a tree. Michael was found at fault for the collision and his Altima was totaled. When Shortcake approached traffic stopped at a light, he watched this week's Tesla behaving badly in his rearview mirror.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
The driver of a white Model X turned onto the street and cut off a minivan, forcing the driver into the other lane to avoid rear-ending the Tesla. Shortcake wanted to shout out his wife, who said, "This is going to Wham Bam." Jacob was heading home from work with some friends when he watched a BMW pull out in front of a Hyundai SUV, causing what would soon become a 3-vehicle collision. Jacob pulled over and called 911 before offering his dashcam footage to the other drivers. Thankfully, nobody was seriously injured. Jacob told us the BMW driver had been distracted by his phone. Jacob's Hyundai Kona was severely damaged, but thankfully, the insurance settlement allowed him to replace it with a Hyundai Ioniq 6. He told us everybody should have a dash cam. You never know what can happen. Richard nearly witnessed a red pickup collide with a gray Toyota after the pickup driver turned wide across multiple lanes. Richard noticed the Toyota driver pulled over to check their car for any damage. He told us he was excited to send us this video as he's been a fan of the Wham Bam channel since the very start of Wham Bam Tesla Cam. This submitter was on his way to work in his Honda Fit when he was involved in his 4th ever vehicle collision. The driver next to him didn't stay in her lane after turning and sideswiped his car. Both drivers pulled over to exchange information, and our submitter told us he was gutted. Richard encountered the driver of a blue car who seemed to be a bit confused about the rules of the road. After turning into the oncoming lane by mistake, the other driver hit the juice pedal and moved into the correct lane. Thankfully, they were far enough away from any oncoming traffic to avoid a collision. Seth was on his usual route to work one morning behind a van. When the van reached the top of a hill, the driver encountered an oncoming SUV that had drifted into his lane. The driver of the van was a father taking his 3 kids out for breakfast. Even though he'd swerved to avoid a collision, the SUV still hit his van and sent him off the road and into a ditch. The SUV's front wheel was busted and it skidded to a stop. Seth rendered aid to the occupants of the van while others called 911. Thankfully, there were no serious injuries. Seth shared his footage with the van driver and the police. The driver of the van checked on the SUV driver and told Seth he seemed intoxicated. But Seth left after giving his statement to the police, so he doesn't know what else happened. Seth told us he loves our videos and encourages everyone to install dash cams in their cars, just like he did in his Nissan Leaf that identifies as a Tesla. He said, "You'll never regret having a dash cam." Bowen was headed home after enjoying a birthday dinner with his wife when they had a frightening close call. A driver turning right pulled out in front of an oncoming driver turning left, causing them to stop in Bowen's lane. Thankfully, the lane to the left was empty, and Bowen was able to use his Nissan Leaf's instant torque to power out of harm's way. He told us both he and his wife were shaken up.
Send it to Wham, Bam.
Gabriel watched a red van with a green light run into an oncoming driver making an unprotected left turn. The red car rolled off the road before stopping. Gabriel pulled over to check on everyone and offer his dashcam footage. Curiously, the occupants of the gold car refused to get out of the vehicle. Gabriel told us his family loves watching our videos every week, and we inspired them to get a dashcam for their Toyota RAV4. His daughter Ari now wants a Tesla after watching Wham Bam Tesla Cam. Tiago was driving along a California highway when he suddenly encountered a strange vehicle that looks like it's straight out of a video game. See if you can identify it. Is that a Warthog from Halo? Maybe some kind of armored personnel carrier? The camo would make sense in that case. Is it something from Minecraft? I give up. Comment below with your best guess. Whatever it is, I want one.
Wham, bam, we got a Patreon, man. Please support the show.